Hey folks, welcome to the show. I'm your handsome host, Isaac West. Finally going to get to talk about an ultimate guide to the trade deadline, but for the sake of not having a 2 hour long video, I'm only going to do it by division. Also, there's a lot more information I wanted to pack in. I wanted to talk about the individual players and all that kind of stuff, and I just decided I'm just going to be very general and not get into too many specifics because that would just be just a ton of information, just be like three encyclopedias worth of information, and I don't really need to get into all that. So we're just going to talk about the Atlantic Division to start. Teams are in alphabetical order about what they received and what they lost, and just kind of what that says about them. And so, first and foremost, in alphabetical order, of course, as I said, is the Boston Bruins. They got a little tougher, as they tend to do. They like their tough guys, and that's what they went out and did this year on the deadline, receiving Patrick Maroon from Minnesota, who has a contract of under $1 million, and Andrew Peeke, whose contract is not too attractive, nearly $3 million for a defenseman who's probably not going to be playing outside of the bottom pairing. Boston receives him from Columbus. I was about to talk about Columbus, but this is the Boston Bruins page. I'll talk about Columbus when I get to Columbus. In getting those two players, Boston traded away Luke Toporowski, a good AHLer, young player who's actually from Iowa, and since he's going to be in the AHL for Minnesota Wild, he gets to play for his home state team. Awesome for him. Boston also trades out Jacob Zboril, bottom pairing defenseman who's a bit more pricey, less pricey, half as pricey as Andrew Peeke, to Columbus. And they also hand Columbus a third-round pick. Peeke is somewhat better, I guess I would say, or is at least having a somewhat better season. And at least even if I'm wrong, that's the opinion of Don Sweeney, the GM of Boston Bruins, who felt that was correct in so much that giving away Zboril and a third-round pick to Columbus for Andrew Peeke. And the last pick they gave away is a 2026 sixth-round pick, but it only gets transferred if to Minnesota if Patrick Maroon plays one game of the NHL playoff this year. It didn't stipulate that it had to be with the Bruins, but it's very unlikely that that Maroon would be on different teams since the deadline is complete. So it could happen where his contract gets terminated for some reason and he gets signed by the Oilers, because that seems to happen, and he plays for a game for the Oilers and Boston still has to give Minnesota their sixth-round pick. But whatever. It's a low enough pick that it's not going to stop the Bruins from playing Maroon, but at the same time, if Boston's doing really well and Maroon doesn't help, then Boston doesn't feel like they're giving up another pick. Yes, it's a low pick, but it's still a pick at the end of the day. It's still a chance at an NHL player. There has been lots of discussion about how after the top two rounds, those picks aren't really don't have great chances. I mean, at getting an NHL player, it starts to go below 50 as you get into the third round, and the chances of getting an NHL player in the fourth round are the same as the seventh round. And yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're right. Those picks don't really matter nearly as much, and therefore the value is going to go down. At least from a fan perspective. But it's not about the fan's opinion of that, it's the market value, right? And that's how GMs are going to use them. And so I'm not going to judge too harshly on value. And the reason I bring that up is because, like I said, it keeps getting talked about, but at the end of the day, it's just the market value, not the fans' perceived version of the value. So both of Boston's trades I don't think are going to mean too much down the road. They could, but they always could. But generally, both Peeke and Maroon are going to play major roles in Boston's regular rest of their season or the postseason, and the players they gave up aren't going to play big roles. Third round pick, you never know with any pick, right? But third round pick is a little high, but yeah, that's more nitpicking. And Boston didn't need to do much. While we're on Boston, I'm sure you've probably heard they tried to give away Linus Ullmark, so I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to get in here. He was reportedly to go play for the Los Angeles Kings, and a trade was in place, but Linus Ullmark has a no movement clause and killed the trade, and therefore Ullmark stayed in Boston. And I think that was a good move for Linus Ullmark, and good for Boston that Ullmark had a head on his shoulders when Don Sweeney and GM didn't. I don't know what Boston was getting. Maybe it was like an incredible deal, so maybe it was well worth it. One would assume a center, and a Boston fan would hope it wasn't Dubois. But no hate on Dubois. It's just you know. Ullmark has been great for Boston. Obviously, he won a Vezina last year. He's been very good this year. Yeah, he's been the second string goalie. And yeah, there's lots of arguments as you can't have two goalies playing in the playoffs. Yeah, probably not. Most of the time, that's not the case. But the league is changing. And Boston's strength is the fact that they've had two really good goalies for the last 2 years. And so if you're taking away that strength, that might hurt you in the playoffs. So I think it was very good for the Bruins that Linus Ullmark stayed. And I also say that as an Oilers fan, glad the LA Kings didn't get Linus Ullmark. So yeah, good job, Boston fans, for whatever you did to keep Linus Ullmark to stay. Maybe the credit should go to Jeremy Swayman and the goalie hug, which of course is awesome and loved. Anyways, next to Buffalo Sabres, who were a bit more busy. Oh, okay. I didn't mean to create a new slide. Delete. There we go. Bit more busy. We had a quote-unquote hockey trade where an actual NHL, I don't want to say actual NHL player because I don't want to demean other players, but guy who's regularly in the lineup and plays a sizable role is traded for another guy who does a save for the other team. That happened between Colorado and Buffalo, and I think it was really good for both teams. I'll talk about Colorado's side in the that's the Central Division's video, but this is Buffalo's side. So they received Bowen Byram, pretty good defenseman. I really like him, young defenseman from Colorado. Kale Salin, they received from Florida, a 4th-round pick from Philly, from this year, Philly's 4th-round pick, and a 7th-round pick from Florida, which has the condition that it could upgrade to the 5th-round pick if the Panthers win the Stanley Cup this year. That's one of my favorite conditions ever, because it's just, you never know what could happen. It's just kind of funny to me that is a condition, because it's such a low chance even for the best team. Anyways, but they also received a 7th-round pick as well from it's Washington's 7th-round pick, but they received it from San Jose, and they also got future considerations from Montreal for whatever that means. In gaining those, they lost Philip Cederqvist, an AHLer, to Montreal, goaltender Devin Cooley to San Jose, Eric Johnson, their best penalty killer, to Philadelphia, Casey Middlestat, the $2.5 million top six or middle six forward, we'll say middle six forward, to Colorado, and their captain, Kyle Okposo, who's at $2.5 million, to Florida. It's weird, in my opinion, to trade away your captain, but at the same time, it's not like Buffalo was doing too much to garner any reason to get to the playoffs. So I don't think that'll affect the locker room too much, or as much as one would expect. But it really could. Trading away your captain can be dangerous territory, but I don't think it will be. The return with Bowen Byram, having Bowen Byram, has already been awesome. He's already scored 3 goals for the Sabres, and I would have said that getting Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat was good even before that happened, because Buffalo has no shortage of scorers. And again, this isn't a diss on Casey Middlestat in any way, but Buffalo does need more help in terms of young defensemen. Owen Power and Dahlin should be, and are already, awesome defensemen, and should continue that progression to being incredible defensemen. And Dahlin's already there. Bowen Byram, I don't think, will be there, but he is going to be an incredible top 4 talent, if not already. Salin shouldn't be I don't see him being too much. He could come in, so it's not like a highly touted prospect. He's or I don't even think he's a prospect. I should have wrote it down. See, this is what I was worried about. Should I put in more information on guys we may not know? But I'll just search it up. Kale Saline, yeah, he's born in 1999. It's a year before me. It feels weird when I researched all these players. Like, younger than me, only a year older than me. I'm at that stage in life where starting to transition to being older than a lot of guys. So I'm just searching up his hockey reference for if I can find it. Okay, fine. Elite prospects. But yeah, he is a young guy. I don't think he's in the NHL. Uh, he was a fifth round pick. I'm not going to do this for every player. It's just I just felt like I should. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he is in the AHL. I would have made a note if he's in the AHL, and he is. He hasn't played too much down there. I don't know if that's due to injury or whatnot, but at the moment he's an AHL defenseman. You never know; it could turn into something. He's still young, and the other notable thing that Buffalo gave away, or thing, people aren't things, is Erik Johnson. I don't think that's like going to be too negative for Buffalo. This year it will be because he has played a heavy role of penalty killing for the Sabres. But again, Sabres cup chances are dwindling, and it feels like they're just trying to reload for another year. And hopefully in their case, Bowen Byram will help with that. Next, Detroit Red Wings. A lot of their more notable moves happened earlier in the year. So they made one trade in which they gave away Klim Kostin to San Jose for Radim Simek and a 7th round pick. So pretty. Neither guys are too notable. I love Klim Kostin. He is a fan favorite wherever he goes. But this is still kind of bottom line trades. The $2 million is an eyebrow raiser in my mind, but I wish Klim Kostin the best of luck. I loved having him in Edmonton. I'd love to see him come back around to Edmonton, but I wish him luck in San Jose, and that team needs all the heart it can get, and Klim Kostin has a lot of it. But that's more of San Jose's return than the Red Wings. Otherwise, this isn't just not super notable thing. Just there, so you can see. Florida was a bit busy, and a bit more busy than I thought they would be. They are one of the best teams in the league, if not the best. They are competing for the President's Trophy, so of course they're going to get better. And they did. They got some goalie depth from Pittsburgh, Magnus Hellberg. He's bounced around the league a lot because he's keeps bouncing between AHL and NHL talent. And this year he's still an AHLer, but he's been okay in his NHL appearances. So if there's injuries on Florida's goaltending, they have Magnus Hellberg. They got Kyle Okposo, as mentioned, with Buffalo, who will add some good depth play for Florida, as well as some leadership, and most notably, Vladimir Tarasenko for $2.5 million. Ottawa retaining 50%, retaining $2.5 million. Tarasenko has already scored with the Florida Panthers and should fit in quite nicely for a team who is happy to have more scoring. Not that they really need it, but you never know. In the process, they gave up Kale Salin, the guy I just took extra time to research. Ludovic Weber goes to Pittsburgh, AHLer, Swiss AHLer. They gave up a 3rd round pick to Ottawa, a 4th round pick to Ottawa. That one has the condition that it upgrades to a 3rd round pick if the Panthers win the Cup this year, which, as mentioned, is my favorite condition. The previously mentioned 7th round pick that goes to Buffalo, that upgrades to a 5th if they win the Cup. If Florida wins the Cup, not the Sabres, and a 7th round pick to Pittsburgh. So I think all really decent value. I think they got a really good. They didn't have to give too much. I mean, for Tarasenko, it can be a little disappointing return in terms of Ottawa, but that's going to be either this video. Ottawa's in the Atlantic Division, so I'll save it for them, that slide. But yeah, I think it's just been great. It makes Florida even more dangerous. It's not often you see a team. Lately, I mean, you see a team lose in the finals and be back so quickly. or within 2 years or 3 years, and they might be back this year. Next, Montreal Canadiens. They continue their rebuild and acquisition of picks. The first one they made is getting a first rounder from Winnipeg for Sean Monahan. That so far has looked good for both teams. First round pick is I thought was maybe a little high, but again, Monahan's doing well in Winnipeg, so they're not going to complain unless the Montreal Canadiens select like a 100-point scorer with their pick. Could happen. That first rounder is for this year as well. They got Philip Cederqvist, an AHLer from Buffalo, and Jacob Perreault, another AHLer from Anaheim. Jacob Perreault, is the son of Yannick Perreault, one of, if not the best face-off takers to have played. At the moment, Perreault is not really projected to do much in the NHL, but he's still young. They also received a third-round pick from New Jersey, which they gave away for Jake Allen. And I'll come back to its conditions after mentioning that they also got a third-round pick from Winnipeg. When I looked at Cap Friendly, this is where all the information came from. It said it had conditions, but at last I checked, it wasn't there, so I didn't note it. But anyways, to the conditions for the third-round pick that Montreal got from New Jersey, it upgrades to a second round if next year Jake Allen plays at least 40 games and makes the playoffs. Not necessarily with the Devils. It doesn't have to be with the Devils, or at least the way it was worded is that it doesn't have to be with the Devils. So again, there could be a funny situation where Jake Allen sucks this year. New Jersey moves on from him because it has been reported that they want to continue starring the goalie market in the offseason. So let's say they move on from Jake Allen and he goes to another team. He plays excellent, plays 40 games. That team goes to the playoffs. And New Jersey has to give away a second-round pick, which, yeah, from third round to second round doesn't sound too huge, but I did mention on the Boston slide the chances of getting an NHLer is actually a bit more notable jump between the second and the third round. So it could hurt, but again, you never know. Maybe Montreal misses on the pick and it doesn't matter. So in gaining those, Montreal lost Jake Allen, one of their 3 goaltenders that they had been running. They are retaining half of his nearly $4 million salary. They lost Sean Monahan, as mentioned. He has done really well for Montreal this year and has continued his good year with Winnipeg. They lost Jan Misak, an AHLer, going to the Ducks, and they gave up future considerations to, I accidentally wrote Montreal, but I believe it was Buffalo. Yeah, it was Buffalo. So, again, whatever that means. That Buffalo trade, Philip Cederqvist, and only giving up future considerations probably tells you that Cederqvist isn't probably going to do anything in the NHL. You never know. But he could absolutely grow into an NHL player, even in his 30s if it takes that. I don't know his age right now, but the fact that Buffalo gave him away for what is assumed next to nothing probably tells you that Montreal was just looking for some AHL depth, and Buffalo didn't really care. Next slide. I gotta scroll down. Here's Ottawa. So yeah, they made one trade, and that was the Vladimir Tarasenko trade. They got 2 middle round picks, a third and a fourth. The fourth, again, could upgrade to a third if the Panthers win the Cup this year. And they received Vladimir Tarasenko, lost Vladimir Tarasenko, while having to take half of the cap, or retain, I should say. Retain is the correct word. I did mention with Florida that I thought that might have been a little low, but with the way the market is, you never really know. It's quite possible that this was, or I think it's safe to assume that this was the best offer Ottawa received, and they're at a point where they would have rather given up Vladimir Tarasenko for something rather than lose him for nothing. I believe his contract is up this year. I will double check, but either way, whether they got a lot for Tarasenko or not, it is a testament to Ottawa's quite disappointing year. They had very high expectations for themselves, as well as their fans. I did not have high expectations for them, and I can talk about that in another video. I never been able to take them seriously ever since they said that the rebuild was over in the Canadian tournament after my Oilers beat them. I think it was 9 times in the same season. Yes, sidetrack Tarasenko. This is his year, so Ottawa will not be retaining salary after. So it is a rental for Florida. But anyways, my point back to Ottawa, their direction is, it feels like it. Some people might say they should rebuild, but you don't want to do that. I don't think you can sell Ottawa fans on doing that because they've just been through one already. At least give this core a try. I don't think the core they've built is bad. It's just not matured. And so I think Steve Staios has to trade away a lot of the complementary pieces that they received to make up for their losses this year. Or, I mean, I shouldn't put it that way. I would say, you get what I mean. So that would include Giroux, who I think would want to stay because it is a hometown team. That may include Chychrun, which sucks for Chychrun. He did mention how much he likes Ottawa and that he's got family nearby and all that kind of jazz. But at this point, Ottawa needs to get going. But at the same time, Chychrun is young, so he could stay. But I think the Tarasenko trade is likely a harbinger of more selling for the Ottawa Senators in allowing the core to mature, which I think they should have done. I think while the moves they made to get a lot of the players that they got, Tarasenko, DeBrincat when they had him, Chychrun, were impressive, I felt like the timing was off because the core wasn't completely matured yet. But they're getting there. Next, Tampa Bay Lightning. They are in a position where they're still clamoring for a playoff spot. They're in a playoff spot. They have a wild card spot, but could fall out. So they didn't want to go all in it for a player, but they didn't want to not do anything, right? They wanted to at least give Tampa Bay their team a chance in the playoffs should they make it, which they probably will, but don't know. They got Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba. Unfortunately for Tampa, or fortunately for Tampa, probably fortunately for Tampa, there was no Tanner Jeannot on the market. They will not be giving up 5 picks, including a first and a second, for a bottom 6 grinder. I like Tanner Jeannot a lot. I like him a lot in Tampa, but I don't think there's any defending the value that Tampa gave up for Tanner Jeannot. Anyways, Tampa didn't have to give up much for the two. They Duclair and Dumba combined for just under $7 million in cap. Tampa does have it, partly due to LTIR, but most teams are using that. In fact, Toronto's using it the most, not Vegas. And then they also received a 4th rounder from Edmonton, which changes to the year of 2026 instead of 2025 if the Oilers win the Stanley Cup this year. The logic behind that is you would assume that the Oilers wouldn't be so good 2 years from now if they win the Cup this year. So just kind of, but again, not a huge change in things. And then they also got a 7th round pick from Arizona, and they didn't give too much up in the process of things. They gave up Ty Taylor, a goalie, to the Edmonton Oilers. The signing rights, as in which probably won't mean anything, but you never know with goalies. They gave up a AHL defenseman to San Jose, and they also gave up a 3rd and a 5th round pick to San Jose and Arizona, respectively. In getting a 4th round pick from Edmonton, they are paying a bit of money or taking a bit of the cap hit for Adam Henrik in Edmonton. So, again, as I said at the beginning, not too much, but at least gives them some scoring depth with Anthony Duclair and another body on the defensive line. Arizona certainly didn't receive what they wanted when they signed Matt Dumba earlier in the year. We knew he was kind of regressing, but I think Arizona was hoping they could at least turn him around, as they had done. That had not been the case for Matt Dumba, and so they didn't get as big of a return as they wanted, as I said. But at the end, Matt Dumba is going to a team that could still be a contender. They may be a wild card, but they are the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have been in 3 finals recently. in not very recently. And again, you need all the healthy legs you can get on defense as injuries do pile up. Last team, Toronto Maple Leafs, everybody's favorite team to talk about. They made a lot of moves, not too many super notable ones, but a lot just to add depth for the playoffs because, as I said, injuries do happen. So it's better to have a seventh defenseman than a young AHLer. They received Connor Dewar, who is listed as a left winger but is versatile. AHLer from Minnesota. Joel Edmondson, a very large defenseman. We'll get to him. They are only paying half of his cap as Washington retains a lot of it. They got Ilya Lyubushkin. They're only paying 25% of his cap. He returns to Toronto, and Anaheim is retaining 50%, and Carolina gets 25%. And from Carolina, Toronto Maple Leafs got this signing rights for Slepets and Weber. I don't expect either of those guys to make the NHL, but again, you never know. In getting those, they gave up an AHLer Ovchnikov to Minnesota. They gave up 2 third-round picks, a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, and 2 6th-round picks, and all those picks are coming within the next 3 years. So the good news for Toronto fans is you got some more warm bodies for the playoffs. You didn't have to give up a 1st or a 2nd-round pick or any of that. But is Edmondson and Lyubushkin going to help the defense? I think yes, but maybe not as much as fans had hoped. Lyubushkin does provide some stability. Edmondson does bring in a lot more physicality that the Toronto defense has been lacking, but that's kind of it. That's all Edmondson really brings, which is a good thing. It's a good thing to have, but I think Toronto fans are going to get mad at him when he doesn't provide more, which happens. So I think there is some positives to take, as I said, for Toronto, and the way Brad Treliving works is that he's an off-season GM, not so much a deadline GM. But I have noticed a lot of Toronto fans are rather negative on the return on what they got at the deadline. They hope for some more, but at the same time, maybe you should be glad you didn't get more because that's what Brad Treliving did with Calgary. He got more, and it's not been good for Calgary. It's really turned on them. Anyways, that's it for this video. I will be quickly work on the up next division and watch the Oilers game tonight, so we can I can have a review for that for all of you fine folk. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like if you think I've earned it. Leave your thoughts on all of these teams and where you think they're going and your opinion on the moves. I don't think there was anything too like eyebrow raising except for the fact that the Panthers got another really good player. And subscribe and turn on notifications. That is great help to me, and I will see you when I see you.